Kia ora talofa namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cache. This is our big old podcast coming at you on a Tuesday. Here to chat through some Aotearoa sporting matters. Do like to take a crikey Jack. Do like to take a bit of time to slow myself down during the podcast, and also take a bit of time after crazy Aotearoa sporting weekends, because that's just what we had. We had the young Wellington Phoenix team getting a dub in an off-season friendly against some teams, so that was good for the Wellington Phoenix. Shout out to them. We'll be discussing their development pipeline, systems and efficiency, because I literally had no idea who the goal scorer was before. Never heard of him before. Mr. Luke Flower-Dew. Shout out to Luke Flower-Dew. We'll be chatting about you later on in the podcast. Big weekend for Wellington. Obviously with the Wellington Saints winning the NBL championship. So we'll discuss a little bit of that. And also we had the... Well, this is actually interesting, because we had the Taueniai sisters doing battle. Trinity, the younger sister, playing for your Dragons in NRLW. She defeated older sister, Alexis, playing for the Bulldogs. And I think Alexis is 20 years old and Trinity's like 18 years old. So along with Alexis being the best women's rugby league player from Aotearoa, Joseph Tapine, Jerome Hughes being excellent men's players as well. Big times for Wellington, of course. Wellington Phoenix, where are they from? Wellington. And also, the Taueniai sisters, they are from Wainuiomata. And it's this time in the podcast where we are going to spark one up, pour some out for, make sure we get the name right here, Chris Faiumu. Better known as Moo or DJ Fitchy, from the illustrious Fat Freddy's Drop. Where's he from? Wainuiomata in Wellington, and unfortunately he has passed away. One of his, like, Fat Freddy's Drop are just, to be honest, they're my favourite musical thingamajigs in the world. And if they've got legendary status as a group, Chris Faiumu, as a founding member of Fat Freddy's Drop coming out of Wellington, he has a legendary Aotearoa music status as well. And is that why you put a Fat Freddy's Drop tune in the newsletter as well? Because I had the Blackbird song, and you also had Plenty More Fish, I think?
Yeah, Fish in the Sea, I think I had. Yeah, that is why. And I'm guessing that is also why you did as well. So I think we were thinking in alignment on that one.
We were indeed. So I've been jamming Fat Freddy's Drop non-stop, as everyone else should, because they are, they're the greatest New Zealand Aotearoa musical thingamajigs in the world. And I've also been reading a bit about Fat Freddy's Drop. We're just on this constant journey to learn more and more. We're not musical experts. We're not even sporting experts. We just stay learning. So I did enjoy reading about Chris Faiumu and his musical journey coming through Wellington, and how intertwined all of these cool, vibrant Aotearoa musical acts are, like Rhombus, Trinity Roots. They're all kind of connected. And also shout out to the foundation, the cornerstones, not cornerstone, but the foundation from which Fat Freddy's Drop was built, Bong Master. Apparently that was the first thing. So that was Chris Faiumu and Dallas Tamaira, who's the singer, and trumpeter Toby Lang, they started Bong Master. Now obviously if you got a Bong Master name, you're perking up the right antenna here, because it's just musical grooves. Let's just say that. Musical grooves coming out of the Bong Master. And Fat Freddy's Drop came from Bong Master, and I had no idea what Bong Master was before this. So shout out to Bong Master, shout out to Fat Freddy's Drop, shout out to the Faiumu Ainga Whānau, and just shout out to Aotearoa Music. And listening back on a whole lot of Fat Freddy's Drop has been sensational, so I might just not stop doing it. And once again, encourage everyone just to run up those streams for Fat Freddy's Drop, because they go hard and it's just pure Aotearoa music. Folks want like, oh, what is New Zealand music? Like, what is the style of music from New Zealand? To me, it's always funky, dubby, grooves, and that is just Fat Freddy's Drop. And apparently it's also Bong Master. Shout out Bong Master, shout out Fat Freddy's Drop, and big up DJ Mood, DJ Fitchy, Chris Faiumu, big up to you.
Are there any recordings of Bong Master out there? I don't think I've ever heard any of that stuff.
I was listening to one. I do most of my musical listening through YouTube's, and there was one track. There was no like playlist, no like project, but you can. The first thing here, we've got Ground My Ego. So there's one. There's a live recording, and there's also the first recommendation is the song with a white car with Fat Freddy's Drop on the side of the car, and there's also a track, Brothers and Sisters, and there's also Haining Saint Jam, which was apparently dedicated to Aaron Tokonga. So there's a bunch of Bong Master songs that you can jam on YouTube and probably on the interwebs as well. So do make sure you check out the old Bong Master.
Right on. Did you ever hear how Fat Freddy's Drop got their name as well?
I can imagine how they got the name Bong Master.
Well, Fat Freddy's Drop isn't that far off from how they got it, believe it or not, because there's there was in the 60s there was like an underground comic strip called I looked it up just to make sure I got the right thing, called The Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, and one of the characters in that was Fat Freddy, which they actually made like a cartoon series of it not that long ago, which I think John Goodman plays Fat Freddy in that. Woody Harrelson's in it as well, and blah blah blah. They I don't know if they read the comic books or not, but I do know that that was like, because it was like a 60s underground comics thing, that was popular like blotter art, which is often when you'd like print out you'd put your acid tabs on like well, what they call blotters, and then you little, you know, like little jigsaws of the thing, rip off a little piece and there's your tab right there. So Fat Freddy's Drop was I think when they recorded their first EP, they just had they were dropping that Fat Freddy blotter, so that's where it came from.
Some of their cover art, there is kind of a comic booky aesthetic.
Yeah,
like,
there is a bit.
I'm looking at this cover art for Bong Master Haining Saint Jam, which is part of it's uploaded to the official Fat Freddy's Drop channel, and it looks like a kind of comic-y style aesthetic. There's also the cover art for the Brothers and Sisters song, which I assume is the Bong Master we're talking about. But the cover art, now if you are partial to Bong Masters, you might understand that the cover art where it says Happy Cones might interest you as well. So that's good to see. What else have you learned about Fat Freddy's Drop and all of that stuff in response to the sad news of the passing of Chris Faiumu?
I mean, their first couple albums are very comic book art influenced as well. So there's that too. I don't know. I don't know if I've learned anything so much as just revisited some stuff. Listened to few tracks there, a few albums, and reminded myself how much I enjoy that stuff and continue to enjoy it. Like, that doesn't change. So yeah, good tunes, and like you say, and not just an iconic Kiwi band, but really kind of like a pillar of the musical community, and deeply, deeply influential in that style of music too. I'll add that to.
Yeah, like you can go back and listen to Based on a True Story. There's the Blackbird album, the Bays album. Most recently, they released Slow Mo, I believe. You can go jam the Boon Digger and the Big BW. That's got some funky cover art. There's also this Fat Freddy's Drop pocket that I don't think anyone else in Aotearoa music has really nailed, and that is the overseas touring. Because
Yeah,
again,
especially in Europe, eh? Like,
you go on YouTube and you can just enjoy hours after hours of Fat Freddy's Drop live overseas, and there's just thousands of people from around the world vibing out to Aotearoa music. And sure, we have musical acts that have ventured across the globe. That is why Aotearoa is the greatest sporting and creative nation in the world, because musically, creatively, we do literally the same shit that we do in sports per capita to our contribution to world music. You watch those concerts, those are big crowds in foreign lands just vibing out to Fat Freddy's Drop, and it's amazing to see them. And of course, when if Fat Freddy's Drop is playing live, they're getting funky. Like, there's a whole lot of different little pockets of trumpeting, like the whatever horns they've got going on. Not a musical expert, just a guy who likes music, trumpet, saxophone,
brass
whatever.
section.
The brass section, that's the one. But they just jam solos for like 5 or 10 minutes. And there's probably some dancing going on. There's just a lot of great stuff happening in those live shows. So if you, just play the songs, do a bit of reading, do a bit of learning. There's obviously, you get a lot of background information when someone does pass away, which is always a bit strange, because could have done that background information earlier, me personally. But you can also watch a lot of Fat Freddy's Drop live, a lot of old school concerts, a lot of recent concerts as well. Because I have been jamming the Fat Freddy's Drop non-stop in recent days, I did see Rhythm and Vines. That popped up in my recommendations of them playing at Rhythm and Vines. And the other thing, obviously I can't pick a favorite song, but the 10 Feet Tall, Fat Freddy's Drop 10 Feet Tall, always gives me like different goosebumps. Like it just always hits me a little bit different, and that's probably, I don't have a favorite Fat Freddy's Drop song, but whether it's the live versions or just listening to Fat Freddy's Drop 10 Feet Tall, that always gives me some crazy goosebumps. So big up to that tune.
Yeah, I remembered one other thing that I learned about, not so much about them, but maybe more about the influence over the last few days, is because you're talking about how they jam it up on stage. Like, even their studio albums, those are like, they're not trying to write tight 3-minute songs, they're with verse, chorus, and then done. They're stretching things out on those, but they certainly do that in the live shows as well, which is, I think, why they're such a good touring band, is because you're going to see something a little bit different with every show. There's like that dub scene always has that like tight reggae kind of influence to them, but then like one of the things reading tributes to Chris Faiumu was how like his first musical tastes were actually like Jimi Hendrix and Carlos Santana, like guitarists that'll play for like 20-minute solos, that kind of like stretching it out in that way. And they like Fat Freddy's definitely have that kind of jam band, at least adjacency. I wouldn't even say adjacency. I would just say they are a jam band on top of the other things they are. But I was looking through no, it was the song I put in the thing, Vision to See there, and then like a lot of the comments from about 4 years ago being like, Goose sent me here, and Goose is a jam band from like New York or something like that, that's quite popular at the moment. they got a new album coming out soon, and one of their songwriters did a really fantastic like solo piano album late last year, which is great. Cameron Winter. Um, that album was called Heavy Metal. So I have been listening to that recently, coincidentally, and trying to get into Goose because I do love the jam band scenes, but I'm more like of the Grateful Dead lineage. I don't love the Fish lineage so much, which is a bit more where this is Fish with a PH. It's a bit more where Goose stems out of, but apparently Goose covered that song like 4 years ago, and so they played it live with, I think, either if it wasn't Trey Anastasio from Fish, it was someone else from Fish, like one of the band members there was guesting on that. A couple of like East Coast American the jam band of the 90s and potentially the jam band of the 2020s. And the song that they cover many songs all the time, but one of the songs they chose to cover on that particular night 4 years ago was by a group from Aotearoa. It's a Fat Freddy's Drop song. So there's an influence right there. Like there's your jam band bona fides, and there's an idea of just how far that influence can spread.
And for those who don't know, and I'm again not an expert, but Faiumu was he was a producer, and he had like wizardry control of instruments, but he wasn't playing the guitar. He wasn't singing. He wasn't playing in the brass section. He was on the drum machine. He was doing, I imagine, a lot of the sampling, and that's just pretty funky itself. And he also hit on a few of my favorite themes as well, because he got his first kind of crack with the student radio station in Wellington, Radioactive at Victoria University, yes. And obviously in Auckland, big fans of BFM. So shout out to all the student radio stations, because all other radio stations are shit. Like if you're not playing the jams, you're a shit radio station. Most radio stations that are the more popular radio stations in Aotearoa do have a bit of shittiness. So shout out to BFM, shout out to Radioactive, shout out to Bruce FM in the South Island if you're still going. I do remember them from a couple years ago. Any radio station that is just playing tunes and jams and grooves, shout out to you. Also, Fat Freddy's Drop apparently signed to an independent collective, The Drop, which was Chris Faiumu and his partner. So, like, I'm not sure how the like distribution works and all that type of stuff with the record industry, but apparently, to the best of my knowledge, they were signed to The Drop, which is an independent record label in Wellington, founded and run by Faiumu and his partner, Nicole Duckworth. So Fat Freddy's Drop, taken on the world from Aotearoa, pretty much independent.
Yep, that's again like that ties into so many of these themes that we talk, even with the way we talk about like Kiwi sports. You already said this, but the way in which like we do the same thing culturally. We do the same thing with how not just the quality or the success or the scope of the art, but the attitude that goes into it. The little bit of DIY, a little bit of like taking your ego out of the picture and that kind of stuff. Like the Kiwi creatives do things a little bit different, same as the Kiwi sports folk do things a little bit different. I mean, we could have an equally long conversation about like movies coming out of this country and stuff. Like, think about Peter Jackson making Lord of the Rings, massive, enormous studio budget, right? But like his first films were just him and his mates doing all the special effects themselves, doing everything themselves, paying for it themselves, on like an absolute shoestring budget. Like a shoestring might have been too expensive for their budget, that's the lineage that's coming out of. So this is I don't know, this is just how we roll, I guess, in this country.
Yeah, I do have it here. Fat Freddy's Drop never signed to a major music label, instead choosing to release their music independently through The Drop, a label founded by Chris Faiumu. Like, that's crazy. Like, they are the premier musical act of Aotearoa, and they took on the world from that independent foundation. That is inspirational. That is Aotearoa musical glory. And in doing some research, like I've talked about the south side of the Bombay. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? And there was some sort of crossover with Fat Freddy's Drop there as well. So that was good to know, because I have been partial to the south side of the Bombay. And also, what do we have here? So this is a paragraph. This is from the Radio New Zealand deep dive from Nick Bollinger. That's probably the best one to read if you want to learn more about Fat Freddy's Drop. He's got a paragraph here. This also hit my heart. By the late 80s, he had accumulated a formidable record collection and was being asked to DJ at parties. In the 90s, he became part of the Funky Monks, a DJ collective specializing in soul, funk, and hip-hop. Around the same time, he helped form the Roots Foundation, another group of DJs with a reggae focus. It was through dub reggae that he began to develop ideas and skills in the production and the manipulation of sound. So that's pulling on my Aotearoa roots reggae dub heartstrings, and that is a immense element of Fat Freddy's Drop, and it's part of the DJ Mood, DJ Fitchy package as well.
And above everything else, just the phrase, the manipulation of sound is it's a great bar.
It is indeed. So shout out to Fat Freddy's Drop, shout out to Chris Faiumu and his whānau, big up to Wellington as well, because it was a massive weekend for Wellington, and we'll be discussing that all in a jiffy, but we do need to get a bit of mindfulness. What do you got, mate?
Well, I did reference the Grateful Dead earlier, and there is a link here. I can spring this back around because they played at at Ken Kesey's acid test way back in the mid-60s. Back when acid was legal and people could just turn up to a party and there'd be a house band there and they would just give you a dose as you walk in the door. And the author / novelist / journalist Tom Wolfe wrote a book about that called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, which is very famous. And in there was a quote which he wrote. I think it's just credited to himself. I don't think he was quoting someone else. I think he just wrote this in the book. Put your good where it will do the most.
Put your good where it will do the most. For some of that's music. If you're musically inclined,
absolutely,
you'll be going deep into the Fat Freddy's Drop styles. Otherwise, just do something good. And do it where it is needed the most, because if someone doesn't really need your good, what good is your good?
What good is your good? Yeah, exactly. Big good, little good, medium good, whatever kind of good you have to offer, just put it where it's needed.
Thank you very much for that mindfulness. The Blackcaps, they're in the tri-series against South Africa and Zimbabwe. They're in the final. Cool, whippity shit. Of this epic trilateral series, otherwise known as a tri-series. But you might have guessed, I don't really care about the fortunes of the Blackcaps in this tri-series. I'm interested in learning about Blackcaps cricket, and this is the stuff I want to share, because we can go through, like, there were team changes from the first T20 to the second T20. Guys scored runs, guys took wickets and whatnot. But there's a couple of things that I want to just highlight that, to me, tell the story of the Blackcaps right now. These are the most important things for the Blackcaps, and we've been talking a wee bit about it. But first and foremost, in the seam bowling department, we have the continuation of Jacob Duffy being an absolute T20 monster, and Matt Henry being an all-format monster. Congratulations to Jacob Duffy. You're a seam bowling monster. The thing I want to ask you, though, is how have you been digesting the rise of Matt Henry into legendary status? And I did roll out these stats in our newsletter yesterday, thenichecache.substack.com. Sign up for the best Aotearoa sporting newsletter in the world. Matt Henry, overall, I think his Blackcaps bowling stats are notably better than Tim Southee. They are slightly worse than Trent Bolt's. And all three of them are well behind Shane Bond as modern Blackcaps seam bowling legends. Shane Bond averaged below 23 in all three formats. Trent Bolt only averages below 23 in T20 bowling. Matt Henry only averages below 23 in T20 bowling, T20 international bowling. So that's Shane Bond, he's chilling by himself. That's all good in the modern era. But if you say Matt Henry is, I'm going to be generous to Matt Henry, he's just as good as Trent Bolt, most people are going to be tripping out. But the stats suggest that Matt Henry is just as good as Trent Bolt as a Blackcap seamer right now. I think he took 3 wickets in both of the T20s so far in the Tri-Series. How have you been digesting that?
Well, the thing about this, like, Matt Henry going from good to great kind of breakthrough that he's had is, it does feel like we've kind of experienced that in real time. Just for, we've talked this through step by step by step in our podcast over the last couple of years, and yeah, I think it's hard to compare retired players with players who are still in their career and have more to offer and whatever. Like, one is a complete set of stats and one is an incomplete set of stats, but I don't think Tim Southee, who had who's a legendary bowler for the Blackcaps and had fantastic moments in all of the formats, but I don't know that Tim Southee ever had a sustained run like Matt Henry's been on for the last 18, 24 months. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trent Bolt didn't either, but I do think that well, like I say, it's hard to compare with we'll count Trent Bolt as a retired player, but it's hard to compare someone like that with someone who is still in the team right now. But I mean, the best way to put it perhaps is to look at it from the angle that Trent Bolt stepped out of the Blackcaps right as Matt Henry stepped up and became the kind of the dominating force that he's become, which meant that as soon as Trent Bolt, great as he was, probably the best Blackcap seamer of his generation, as soon as he stepped away, and he stepped away earlier than anyone expected, we didn't miss him because Matt Henry just went and did what Matt Henry's been doing, and he's continued to do that like 2 years later down the track, and he's added the T20 stuff to it. I mean, I think I might have said this last week, but I can't remember a kind of like a later career breakthrough of this level when it's not for a player like Jacob Duffy's a good example of someone who it was more a little with him, just he hadn't quite had the opportunity. He's certainly leveled up. He's got a little bit quicker. He's talked about that and how he's managed to achieve that. But Matt Henry was already a really good international player, and he's gotten even better since then. So, I mean, I can't think of another case like that where someone's breakthrough hasn't come, like someone's later career breakthrough hasn't come just because of more opportunities, but because of like they were already good and now they're just amazing on top of that. It's kind of a unique thing, and I'm not sure the wider perspective gets in the Blackcaps kind of fandom gives that enough credit, because I think there is still a bit too much of that thinking about the three-headed dog that they lost in the Bolt, Southee, Wagner. Well, I think Matt Henry has been a more dominant force than Tim Southee ever was over a sustained period. He's done it in more formats, so he's already a more effective Blackcaps bowler than Neil Wagner, and he's knocking on the door of what Trent Boult achieved as well. So I mean, I don't he whether it might take a little while for that to come around, but at some point he's going to be seen as on par with those three players because it's undeniable when you look at what he's doing.
Yeah, that's the negative against Neil Wagner is he was only a test bowler, so I mean you can't be an all format monster if you're only playing one format for Aotearoa. And this is a recent development for Matt Henry because since the start of 2020, he is averaging 24.1 in test bowling, 22.6 in ODI bowling, 19.5 in T20 bowling. He was 48 in test bowling before that, 26.4 in ODI bowling before that, 27.2 in T20 bowling before that. So he has got a whole lot more efficient, a whole lot more effective in the last few years, and that has propelled him into this status. So shout out to Matt Henry. The other thing I'm thinking about, one other thing. Rachin Ravindra scored runs in the second T20. Rachin Ravindra's getting better in T20 cricket. Of course, if you just look at his profile on Cricinfo, you'll see that he averages below 20 in both T20 batting formats. So obviously Rachin Ravindra sucks. For a T20 team, who are you selecting between Rachin Ravindra, Devon Conway, and Kane Williamson?
Well, Devon Conway scored runs in the second game as well, though. He did that. But clearly, there's the two of those guys you sort of know what you're getting, and one of them in Rachin Ravindra is he hasn't done it consistently in T20 internationals yet. He has in ODIs, and he's certainly had some spectacular glimpses in Test cricket. But it feels like it's coming. It feels like that feels like a question where right now it is a debate that could be had, and in 12 months' time it probably won't be.
No answer?
Yeah, no answer.
Right.
Okay. I'm gonna have a scheduled tweet for 12 months' time saying it's definitely Ravindra and I believed it all along, but I kind of want to hold fire until then.
I don't hold fire. If we know that. I don't hold fire. Rachin Ravindra, I'm picking him over Devon Conway and Kane Williamson for T20s right now. Kane Williamson, Test and ODI, fair play. Rachin Ravindra's second. But that is the T20 situation right now. Oh my God, Devon Conway, casual contract. Kane Williamson, he's not playing for the Blackcaps. What's happening? I've got Rachin Ravindra ahead of both of them. Rachin Ravindra's already shown me the development to command that spot in the top order, and I have no issues selecting Rachin Ravindra out of those three right now.
Well, speaking specifically to the T20 scene as well, Kane Williamson, who's now played 8 of the last 52 Blackcaps international T20s, and that number is going up because, well, the number of games is going up. His number of appearances is not going up because we've got a couple more on this tour. This might just end up being the exact same thing as what we're just saying about Matt Henry. Where Trent Boult steps away and we don't even notice because Matt Henry just picks up all of the slack and then some. Well, if Rachin Ravindra does the same thing with Kane Williamson already not playing T20, so that's the slight difference, is that he's not gone from being the key batter to being out of the picture. He already doesn't really play this format anyway, but if he disappears completely and they just move on and say you can focus on your T20 franchises and playing ODI and Test cricket, blah blah blah. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be an absence that they miss in any way, shape, or form. Largely because Rachin Ravindra could just do exactly what Matt Henry has done in the batting equivalent.
Ravindra adjacent, but it involves it's not adjacent. It's another factor in Ravindra's skill set. He's a decent spinner. And I still have my Blackcaps T20 best spinners as Santner, Sodhi, then Bracewell. But I think we're coming into a situation where you could make a case that Ravindra could be the third spinner ahead of Bracewell if Bracewell isn't as efficient and effective. Part of that conundrum, or that just mixer, is the wicket-keeping situation. So Tim Seifert hasn't scored runs so far in the Tri-Series. I do not believe he's got 25 runs or a strike rate at 120. If Seifert isn't smashing boundaries as he does when he's at his best, he's not going to be in the team, and then you need a wicketkeeper. So then you're looking around who's going to be the wicketkeeper, and if you got Ravindra, then you might need to play a wicketkeeper in the middle order, so that leaves less room for Michael Bracewell. But Michael Bracewell is an experienced, mature cricketer, very crafty, very powerful lefty batter. So all these pieces are kind of related, and that flows into Mitch Hay, because Mitch Hay didn't take his chance in the only T20 he played. Neither did Jimmy Neesham. And if I'm throwing in Michael Bracewell here as well as someone who hasn't really just commanded consistent first 11 T20 selection to me, he's a good player. He's in the mix, but I'm just still waiting for a little bit more from Michael Bracewell. Well, we got Bevan Jacobs. So I'm selecting Bevan Jacobs ahead of Jimmy Neesham for sure. Unless there's a wicket-keeping drama, I'm selecting Bevan Jacobs ahead of Mitch Hay for sure. And I am contemplating if I'm going to be selecting Bevan Jacobs ahead of Michael Bracewell, because we can get spin-overs from Ravindra. We can get spin-overs maybe from Glenn Phillips. We've obviously got Santner and Sodhi. This is Blackcaps cricket in 2025, where I am going all in on Bevan Jacobs. This dude's a freak.
And he did show a little bit of that in that first T20 knock as well. I mean, we were talking in glowing terms about some of his shot making in the subscriber podcast. So people are starting to realize that now. People are starting to see what he has to offer. Assuming they're watching whatever channel this happens to be on. These 11 p.m. kickoffs are tough yakka.
Well, I did make a gif of Bevan Jacobs playing.
That's true. They should have sent that one.
An extended on drive for six, one of the greatest cricket shots I've ever seen. And to be honest, Bevan Jacobs, like AB de Villiers, incredible cricket shots. Now I've got Bevan Jacobs just going like, wait, what did he just do? He just back foot punch for six, on drive for six, perfect technique, 3,000 meters gone, sixer. Bevan Jacobs, he's that dude. He's my dude in the middle order right now for the Blackcaps. As part of the Wellington celebration, we did have the Wellington Saints winning the NBL championship. It was as I said last week, I was split between the Southland Sharks, my appreciation for them and everything they're doing, and of course my infinite appreciation for Hiram Harris. I would like to shout out Kaikoi, because we had Tukaha Cooper from Kaikoi in the Southland team, as we talked about last week, but we also have Kerry Johnson as the Broncos NRLW winger. She's from Kaikoi, and I've been tracking the Kiwi NRL juniors who are part of the Australian schoolboys team, and we've basically got 5 consecutive years in which a Kiwi NRL junior has made the Australian schoolboys rugby league team. All 5 played junior rugby league in New Zealand. So it started in 2021, Dean Mariner from Marist, Keanu Kinney from Northcote, 2023, John Whinianga Nofo, the Auckland Grammar School. He's currently with the Dolphins. 2024, Mason Barber from Kaikoi. So shout out to Kaikoi. They're doing some good stuff with the sporting things and all their community work up north. 2025, it was Antonio Verhoeven from Greymouth. So the last 2 Kiwi NRL juniors who have made the Australian Schoolboys Rugby League team, one of them's from Kaikoi, the other's from Greymouth. Tells you all you need to know about Aotearoa Rugby League right there. Unfortunately for Tukaha Cooper and the Southland Sharks, they weren't quite good enough to take the bickies in Wellington. Now, that was a key factor. Big Wellington crowd to a rally behind their Saints for the NBL Championship. I have poked at you a few times for your appreciation of Wellington Saints basketball, dynastic things. Are they... I think I did come around because a lot of the stuff you were talking about was like, yeah, they are one of the most prestigious basketballing organizations in New Zealand. That's undeniable. You got all the banners behind you there. That tells the story. Very successful basketball organization. But my perspective was that they haven't necessarily won like a bunch of championships in recent years, like the Canterbury Rams did, going back to back. But I think I did come around because I did underestimate how many championships the Wellington Saints have won recently.
Yeah, this was their 13th in franchise history, so I don't know the full allotment of when. The most recent was 2021, and before that they dominated the 2010s, as did frankly the Southland Sharks. Also were really good in that era too. So this isn't even the first, it's not even the second time in the last decade these two teams have met in a final. But neither of them really have been like, clearly they both had dips in the last sort of 4 years. And apparently that's over. Just the Wellington Saints, they are the champions once more, and they did what you need to do to win a championship in the NBL. You just like get a extremely good coach, couple of excellent imports, couple of the very best like Tall Blacks level local players, some quality youngsters slash role players, and let them rip. I am stoked for, like, among the many things, because Jordan Atai was really awesome for them in this run. I think they won like 9 out of 10 games or something like that after he turned up. He had been playing in Austria, so he missed the start of the season. They went on, like, they hit next level once he arrived, even though it's not like he turned up and started scoring 30 points every game. He's capable of scoring 30 points in a game, but that's not necessarily, like, he kind of took his time to make himself fit into the team that he found, rather than expecting the team to adapt to him or anything like that. Partly, like, that's part of the reason why he's going to be the Tall Blacks captain on their upcoming tour, is because he is a leader like that. He is a team first kind of person, and very influential in them winning this championship. Obviously, Hiram Harris in the final, spectacular. 20 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists. And it's not just that, like, he was a defensive player of the year, and he was going up directly on a lot of plays throughout this final against Josiah Alec, who was the most valuable player in the competition. So you had the most valuable, which is kind of an offensive attacking award. It's not strictly that, like, you take into account the other side of the ball as well, but generally you're looking for someone who scores a lot of points and influences the stats and things like that. And Harris had a better game than him. It was DPOY versus MVP. It was Harris who won that battle. Alec was still good, but he was only good. He wasn't great like he has been in other games through most of the season, frankly. And yeah, like, great fun to watch how that Wellington team play, especially at the very end. Like, the fourth quarter, they pulled away a little bit, and then the way they managed the game from there, like the way they grabbed offensive rebounds in the last few minutes. They made their free throws, things like that, where it's like that is clinical winning basketball. Like, that is what the best teams do in order to win championships. But I am also really stoked for Aaron Young as their coach. He is the guy they brought in. He'd been coaching the Auckland Tuatara the last couple of years. He is the guy that they brought in to be like, you are going to take us back to the glory lands. You're the one who's going to give this team that extra little jolt. He'd made 3 grand finals in a row with the Tuatara and had lost all 3 of them. So stoked for him, because he is, without doubt, he's a Tall Blacks assistant. He's a Perth Wildcats assistant. He is one of the very best coaches we've got coming out of New Zealand at the moment. And you don't want to lose 4 finals in a row. You don't want to lose any final. You certainly don't want to lose 4 in a row. So really happy for him to get over the line. And then, of course, there was this other element of this final, which is that in this very, like, what would you call it? Like, it was almost like destiny. It was almost like it's foretold the way in which this final turned out to be a tribute to the late great Kevin Braswell, where you had the Southland Sharks and the Wellington Saints were the two teams that he played for. He coached the Wellington Saints as well. Like it was quite a special thing, especially the way in which both of those teams went on fantastic runs to get there. Because earlier in the season, we would have just said, "Yeah, Canterbury Rams, they're looking for three in a row." The way they were playing, they were on track for three in a row. But as I say, like Jordan Ngatai turned up, took the Saints to that extra step. Southland Sharks just going on a big winning streak. I think they won like what was it, nine games in a row, I think, leading up to ultimately losing in the grand final. But it's just like I don't know, a little bit it was a little bit spiritual, it's a little bit magical with the way that in which it just these two teams happen to be the teams that got there. The way in which like Jordan Ngatai, who probably more than any other players, quite a few of these players in this game would have had stuff to do with Kevin Braswell in particular, whether through the Breakers, whether through either of these two franchises. Jordan Ngatai through both of those elements, like him more than almost anyone else. The way that he got to play a big role in that is also quite special. And then this is following on from the team that Braswell was coaching when he passed away earlier this year. Usoni Mia Brex, something along those lines. A Japanese isn't as sharp as it should be, but they won the Japanese championship, and it was his assistant slash protege Zico Coronel, another New Zealand coach, who took over as the interim after Braswell got sick, and then tragically passed away. It was Zico who took over and then led that team the rest of the way. Isaac Fotsu played for that team as well. Finn Delaney actually popped up for them, not in the Japanese championship, but they had like a little Champions League type thing with a bunch of other Asian teams after their season, which they signed Delaney on a short-term deal so that he could go over there and play a little bit of that, get a bit of match fitness before he goes and plays for Melbourne United in the upcoming NBL season. So, the Kevin Braswell influence stretches. It's been a very successful one this year. It's just like kind of crazy how both of those two championships where he had such an influence then ended up with like his teams making finals and winning championships. And I suppose you'd say that bodes well for the Breakers, but we'll have to see how that goes moving forward. But yeah, shout out to the Braswell whānau as well, because we did the Chris Faiumu tribute at the start of the podcast. It's only fair to throw up some love to the Braswell clan as well, because he was a massively important person within Kiwi hoops, and I think we saw a very fitting tribute, not only in the NBL final, but also, frankly, in the Japanese final as well. So lovely stuff there.
Indeed, the Wellington Saints. If we go, this is their championships per the Wikipedia: 2010, 2011, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2019, 2021, 2025. So I wasn't putting them in the Canterbury Rams like current dynasty territory because they hadn't won one for 3 or 4 years. But it's undeniable. I was kind of being a silly bugger if you're saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 NBL championships since 2010, and 3 in the last 6 years. I mean, that's pretty good. The thing I did like just specifically for that game, like Southland Sharks, they got Alec and they got Sam Timmins, another late arrival who boosted the Southland Sharks throughout that NBL campaign, or the second half of the campaign. 2 big men. And so the Wellington Saints, Hiram Harris is guarding Timmins sometimes. Sometimes he's guarding Alec. Ngatai guarding Timmins and Alec. Like they were, and then of course you got Muzinski, one of the imports. They were just rotating their, not big men, because like Hiram Harris and Jordan Ngatai, they are bigger than us, but they're not necessarily NBL or basketball big men. But they were just getting the job done on bigger bodies in that final. And I also love the Kiwi core. So as happens with big old basketball games, you use less players. So 5 dudes played over 30 minutes, and then the Aussie Sean Bruce, I think, he played 17 minutes. So and then Sam Gold, who's from Wellington, he played 6 minutes. Only 7 dudes were used by Coach Aaron Young. 5 of them played 30 minutes, over 30 minutes. The Kiwi core, Jordan Ngatai, Hiram Harris, Isaiah, Mariaho'o Leafa. Like, that is a very good Aotearoa basketball trio to take you forward. And then you've also got Gold. He's from Wellington. We talked about Caslow Evans Jr. He didn't play in the final, but he's from Aotearoa. And Rangimari Dougal Mita didn't play in the final, but he is another very good basketball player from Wellington as well. So it's like you do always need your imports, and Mazinski, big man, he was doing his job. Nick Marshall, I think it's a Nick. Is it a Nick Marshall?
Yeah, he's a Nick Marshall.
Him and Bruce, Aussies, who did a fantastic job, but Marshall, the ball just seemed to go to him off the rim, off the backboard every single time. So he was pretty epic. How many rebounds did he have? 11 rebounds, sorry. Almost as many as the round mound of Aotearoa rebound, Hiram Harris, who had 14. So that was Nick Marshall getting busy in the final. And those are the kind of details that win you championships. So they have very good imports, and those imports were getting the nitty-gritty done. Like, they weren't the flashy imports scoring points and not doing much else. They were the hard mahi imports. But you also had strong contributions from their local players as well. I'm pretty sure Jordan Ngatai is from Wellington. I think Leafa might be from Wellington as well, off the top of my head.
Leafa is, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jordan Ngatai is from Wellington. I'll do a little Google search.
I think he is. He's the Prince of Pororoa, so he is from Wellington.
There you go. There's only one place you can be from if you're the Prince of Pororoa. So it's like they've got a Wellington kind of core. I think Hiram Harris is from Hamilton, off the top of my head.
Yeah, Hamilton. Yeah.
So you got that Wellington core, but you got a Kiwi core, and throughout the season, like, I saw Dougal Mita draining threes. Caslow Evans was pretty awesome. Who are these other guys? Richards and Pilcher. Do you know much about them off the top of your dome?
No, but they did have also Troy Plumtree from the New Zealand under-19s team. He hardly played this year because he went over to do like prep school or something like that in America. So he only played a few minutes, but he's a local who's come through that sort of I guess the Wellington Saints pathway. I don't know if you call it that or not, but he's another one, like a talent from the region who the Saints have identified and helped nurture a little bit. So they had their presence in that New Zealand under-19s team at the World Cup recently as well. So yeah, big stuff there. It doesn't need to be the case where your local players are literally local players. You don't need to sign players from that city, but watching like Leafa in particular, but I'd say Ngatai too, like watching the way they celebrated afterwards, it does mean a little bit more to those guys. So I think that is probably an element not to underestimate as well with the success of this team.
And I'm underselling it because we've got Luca Richards. He's apparently from Wellington. Arthur Pilcher. He's from Wellington. So a lot of their young talent, their development players, the guys who are battling away in the Rapid League. Did they play Rapid League before the final?
No, I don't think they had Rapid League playoffs. That wrapped up a couple of weeks ago, but throughout the rest of the season, yeah, sure, absolutely.
That was more of a joke. It would be a bit weird, like the curtain raiser to the NBL final was a game of Rapid League. It
would have been Nelson as well. They had the best Rapid League team. I think. I don't know if they finished top in the standings, but they had the best Rapid League team. Might have been able to bring Hayden Jones back for a little pre-game bit of pre-game action, even though his actual team wasn't involved.
Yeah, you got all these tall blacks playing Rapid League just to
Yeah.
boost them up.
Well, there's no first team, so there you go.
Yeah, so you mentioned like Ngātai Leafa and how excited they were to win for Wellington, but all the guys waving their towels on the bench, they're also from Wellington. They're the young players on the rise in Wellington basketball, so that was pretty epic for them. And of course, shout out to the Southland Sharks for having a crack, making it to the final. We've also got the Tall Ferns wrapped up their Asia Cup, and we've got a Tall Black squad for some activities coming up that doesn't include Hiram Harris. And it is a bit weird, like Hiram Harris, clearly one of the best players in the NBL. To me, he is the second best basketball player from New Zealand in the world, second to Stephen Adams. I'll keep, yeah.
Third behind Shaylee as well, maybe.
Hiram Harris is my dude, so I'll stick with him. But it is a bit weird.
Shaylee was with this Wellington Saints team for a lot of the season as well, but he didn't play through the playoffs because he got injured. I'm not sure if it was another concussion. Unfortunately, he has had a lot of concussions. He is a small guard who attacks the rim, so it is a concerning thing about his game, the amount of sort of concussion sit downs he's had to have. But he, for whatever the fitness reason was, he didn't finish the season with them. So like they had one of the very best local players, arguably the best New Zealander playing in this competition. And if it's not, if you still want to stump for Hiram Harris, well, he was on that team as well. So either way, that statement is still true for the Wellington Saints. But Illy didn't even play in the finals. He wasn't even part of that final. So you can add that to the list as well, is that they were missing one of their very best players. Didn't make a difference.
Yeah, Shea Illy, I think the concussion, it was probably better said that he's a defensive beast. He does attack the rim for sure, but more pertinent to the concussion might be his.
It might be taking some charges. Yeah,
the old rugby idea of putting your head where people don't want to put their feet, that type of thing, and that's what makes Shea Illy so good at basketball. But go back to Hiram Harris, he's not on the Tall Black squad. He doesn't have an Australian NBL contract. You read in our newsletter yesterday that he is off to play in Japan. So use that as an entry point into the Tall Black squad, and then we'll chat a little bit about the Tall Ferns as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's had a strange Aussie NBL career because he's been at like four different teams. I think he was with Illawarra for a bit, he was with Cairns, he was with Adelaide, he's with Perth, and it felt like maybe the first year in Perth where he was working with Coach Aaron Young, so there was a little bit of at least some Kiwi connection on the staff, even though Young is not the head coach. He is just an assistant there, but I think he is their main assistant. That first year with Perth, he was really good, and it felt like finally a team had figured out how to use Hiram Harris at that level. And then the second year with Perth, he barely played, like he hardly got used. It was no surprise whatsoever that they didn't re-sign him, even though I wondered if maybe after Bryce Cotton left, maybe there might be something where it's a different looking team, so perhaps there was a role for him that didn't exist before, but apparently not. He is 29 though, so I think also maybe this might be a time to go and just see it was the Japanese league which Modi Mayor left the Breakers for, when it was supposedly an offer he couldn't refuse. So clearly there's a fair bit of money in there, and Harris is only going to the third tier, which is certainly less than what he could, but it also probably means he gets to turn up and just dominate and be the man. And it'll be fun experience to go live in Japan for a year, see what that leads to, whether they can get promoted or whether he impresses enough to move up. I think Finn Delaney might have only played second division there as well last year, so it's not like it's a low standard or anything. It's a deep competition, but that is what Hiram Harris will be up to soon. And that season starts in September, so there's probably a preseason before that. And that'll be why he's not involved in the Tall Blacks coming up, because the Tall Blacks have quite a long tour on the cards. I think they'll be traveling, if not now, then very soon, within the next couple of days. They're going to China, where they're going to play a couple of little sort of exhibition type tournaments. Effectively warm-ups for midway through next month when the Asia Cup happens. So the Tall Ferns just had their Asia Cup. The Tall Blacks are about to have theirs. There's actually not really anything on the line. Like I talked about how the Tall Ferns needed to finish in the top 6 out of 8 teams in order to progress in World Cup qualifying, but there's separate World Cup qualifiers for the men's, so that's not even a consideration for the Tall Blacks. So it's just an Asia Cup. Um, yeah, there's nothing else outside of the tournament itself to play for, so you don't necessarily you want to send the best team you can, but you're also going to have relevant reasons why players might be like, yeah, well, I've got an Aussie NBL season coming up and I've got a little bit of an injury here. Like Shaylee, for example, obviously is not going to be a part of the squad, and he's not part of the squad. There are a few, though, with Aussie NBL contracts who are involved. Flynn Cameron is there, Taylor Britt's there, Max Darling, Carlin Davidson, those last three all with the Breakers. Tane Murray has a contract. Dante Russo-Nance as well. Dante Russo-Nance, Toy Smith-Milner too. Dante Russo-Nance will be in line for a debut. So he had a spectacular season with the Manawatu Jets. Big step up from him. He's going to go to a full contract with the Perth Wildcats after a few years as a DP as well. So great recognition there. Also the same deal for Jack Andrew. When you're missing a few big men, you're short on some guys. Him after a great year with Taranaki playing alongside Carlin Davidson, also on the squad. Jack Andrew could be getting his international debut. And then there's a third one here, which is absolutely fascinating. Mojave King, who was born in Dunedin, I think, played a year for the Southland Sharks a few years ago, but was otherwise born and raised in Australia and always said he wanted to play for Australia. But for being honest, probably wasn't going to happen for him. But it's not like he got rejected by Australia and was like, okay, fine, I'll go play for New Zealand then. Like he's put in some work. He went and played a year for the Breakers. He came back and played for the Tauranga Whai this year and was fantastic. Wasn't that good for the Breakers. So he's very erratic. He had a couple of nice scoring games, but his shot wasn't that great. Caught out defensively a bit, but he was really good for the Whai. And that has led him into here. So we've got a couple of players like Dante Russo-Nance is one, Jack Andrew is another, Mojave King, guys who have broken into the Tall Black squad, getting this opportunity, picked by Judd Flavel there on the back of really good New Zealand seasons, like really good stuff there where they've exploded into contention. Guys like, I think Flynn Cameron would be a first choice regular. Jordan Ngatai would be close to a first team regular. Maybe Toy Smith-Milner as well. So they're quite a long way away. Oh, Taylor Britt probably too. But they're quite a way away from what would be like an idealized Tall Black squad. If I mentioned everyone there on that list, Ben Gold as well is in there. He's the one USA college guy who has found time to be able to be available. Younger brother of Sam Gold, who we're talking about playing for Wellington Saints. So he's someone who's had a pretty impressive college career so far. That is only 11 players: Andrew, Britt, Cameron, Darling, Davison, Gold, King, Murray, Ngatai, Russo-Nance, Smith-Milner. That's only 11 players, so they do need to add one more player to that list. Ben Gold, because of his college commitments or whatever it is, isn't going to be available until the Asia Cup itself, so he's not doing the preliminary stuff. So what they've done is they've added 3 extra players. One is Hayden Jones. One is Luca Yates, a dual international who played for Hawke's Bay this year. Another one, I think he was born in New Zealand but raised in Australia, but he came back and played for the Hawks this year, and he's in contention. And I can't remember who the other one was, but I'll check the thing in a second. So one of those 3 players is going to work their way into the squad and be like the 12th man for the actual event itself. Somewhere here I wrote it. Ding 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 ding. I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that? Because I need to. John Hunt.
John Hunt.
He's the other one who's been added, who is in contention to be added to the Asia Cup squad, and who will be playing in the preliminary stuff in China. So quite a fun team. Like nowhere near a full strength team, and I don't think we can have like super high expectations on what they'll do at the Asia Cup itself. But I mean, we said the same thing about the Tall Ferns, and they did all right. So that'll be fun. It's definitely a team with a few players who have something to prove about themselves, whether it's because it's their first opportunity or whatever. Very excited to see Mojave King in a black singlet and being able to like cross off the asterisks every time he comes up in like things that New Zealand basketballers have achieved lists. It's been like, well, we're not sure if he counts or not. Well, now he does. He's a New Zealand international, so now he certainly counts. We can say proudly with our chest out that he is the third New Zealander to have been drafted in the NBA after Steven Adams, after Sean Marks. It did happen with Mojave King, even though he never actually played NBA, he did get drafted. And yeah, we'll see what they get up to at the Asia Cup, which I can't remember where it is, like Saudi Arabia or something like that. Yeah. So I would imagine, I haven't looked at the Australian team, but I'd imagine they're in a similar bag where it's like it's not a development team, but it's also not your first string team. You're just sort of making use of who's available, but it's probably never been a better time for the Tall Blacks to be able to be calling upon a competitive team under those kind of circumstances, because we got dudes like Jack Andrew, Mojave King, and Dante Russo-Nance who haven't even played for the Tall Blacks yet, who are going to debut on this tour.
You mentioned that the Tall Ferns needed to finish in the top 6 at their Asia Cup for World Cup qualification.
That's it.
And they finished 5th. So they got the job done there. Is it like, does that just wrap it up nicely? Like they were top 6, job done, all good? Or is there some sort of like disappointment there? Is there like they could have been better? Where are you at with just debriefing that Asia Cup campaign?
Well, it could have been better because they actually, I was a bit surprised by it, but they actually put in a really good show against South Korea. They nearly pulled off a comeback. They tied the game with about 6 seconds left, and then South Korea hit one at the buzzer, and that was that. But they, like, what was an inexperienced team under a new coach, a lot of new players, really pushed that South Korean team very far. And South Korea were kind of the gatekeepers last time we went to the Asian Cup with a stronger team, although also a very inexperienced team at that time, but not a new coach, and finished 4th. South Korea were kind of like the gatekeeper team. Like they were the team that we beat in order to, that's the difference between quarterfinals and semifinals, was being able to beat a team like South Korea. Didn't quite get the job done there, but then thrashed Indonesia as we should have in the next game, which in itself ensured that they would progress to the next round, and that's top 6 done. Like that's all it required, was that one against Indonesia. They got the job done there. Thrashed in return by China. No surprises there. China had a player called Jiu Zhang, who is 18 years old and 7'3", and like would make Julius Halaifanor at the same age look like a beanpole standing next to her. Like she's like 3 centimeters shorter than Yao Ming. I've never seen anything like that in women's basketball. Like Ratoya Tamilo is the tallest player in the New Zealand team. She's 6'4". She had to jump to contest a shot with Zhang, who was standing like on her heels. It was unbelievable. She only played about 10 minutes in that game. China were awesome, so China thrashed us regardless. That's not the difference of the game. It's just pointing out a particularly interesting athlete, but like that put them into the knockouts where they played Japan, and we were actually winning against Japan at halftime, a couple points up in that one. Ezra McGoldrick had a spectacular game. I think she scored like 28 points. She was scoring down low, she was scoring from outside, she was scoring at the free throw line. Like all the best stuff was running through Ezra McGoldrick. It was just a spectacular individual effort from her. Unfortunately, Japan kind of tightened it up in the third quarter, had a really good defensive showing, and we started throwing turnovers left, right, and center. So we just didn't quite have the depth to be able to sustain that over 4 quarters to beat Japan. But we put up a competitive showing there as well. So and then beat Philippines in the playoff for 5th and 6th. So a 5th place finish is probably like about what they should have done. But taking into account how competitive that team was under the circumstances they had leading into it, how competitive that team was against South Korea and against Japan, I think that's a very promising, very positive Asia Cup excursion for them. And you sort of expect Ezra McGoldrick as the most experienced player in that group. You sort of expect her to be very good, but seeing players like I think Charlotte Whitaker, Taylor Dalton certainly had really nice efforts, mostly off the bench. Emmy Shearer as well. Rebecca Pizzi as a new player, switched over from Australia. She was very good. So managed to add a few potentially important depth players to the pool as well moving forward. So I would say a very successful Asia Cup effort from the Tall Ferns on the whole. And now the impetus is on the blokes to try to do the same thing when their one comes around in a few weeks.
And Tauihi comes around in a few weeks, I think.
Yeah, we're starting to get a few signings there. So a few players from that squad have already committed to teams. I think Charlotte Whitaker and Emmy Shearer were two of the most recent ones to sign with Tauihi's squad. So that should ramp up over the next few weeks. Now we start to see those teams taking shape and start to see who's playing where and what and who's going to be hanging around. A couple of them did. Like we have had a couple signings in Australia though, which is interesting because it was like a notable drop in players playing in Aussie last year because they moved the Tauihi season and it clashed with it. So you kind of had to play one or the other. Or in a few cases, like I think McKenna Dale did this, where play the New Zealand season and then like join an Aussie team leading into the playoffs and see if you can be a role player for them, sort of playing a third of the season or something. But the Adelaide Lightning are coached by one of the assistant coaches for the Tall Ferns. So she's managed to bring in Karen Mitchell. She's managed to bring in, I think, Ella Tofiano is playing for them. Ashley Strawbridge has signed with the Adelaide. Both of them were in this Asia Cup squad. And then also Shan Rabati, who was one of the standouts, maybe the standout of the series against Australia earlier in the year, but was unavailable for the Asia Cup. She's also signed with the Adelaide Lightning. So I think there's a very clear WNBL team who New Zealanders will be wanting to follow. And that's the team that has a Tall Blacks assistant and 3 New Zealanders on the roster.
Righto. Let's chat a bit of Warriors.
How about that Leka Halasima, eh?
Hold your horses.
He didn't.
It's a bit weird for all the docos out there, but we'll let that one slide. The weekend for the Warriors. So obviously the NRL team had a victory over the Knights. The NRLW team, they lost to the Knights. New South Wales Cup, they had a win over the North Sydney Bears. Jersey Flegg Warriors had a loss to the Storm. The important thing here is that the women's team and the Jersey Flegg team, they were playing against really good teams. So to me, the best teams in NRLW are the Roosters, the Broncos, and the Knights. So I'm not too fussed about the women's loss. Interestingly, the men and the women in the NRL competitions, they're up against the Gold Coast Titans in Auckland next week. Both of those are very winnable games for both teams. So if you're looking for a good game to get behind the woman, that game against the Titans will be a very important game for the NRLW team. Jersey Flegg, the Storm are the best team in the Jersey Flegg Cup competition. So like last week, that epic win against the Tigers in the under-21s, that was a mid-table battle. This week, the Storm are top of the table. I think they're still top of the table, and the Warriors are mid-table. So that game played out as expected. And shout out to the Storm. They had KC Newton-Whare, who is a Rickerton junior from Christchurch. And they also had Josiah Ekihard Nelly, who is from Christchurch as well. I think he was 18th man for the Storm under-21s. And of course, the Knights women's team that defeated the Warriors, Tanika Willison at centre, Tiana Davison was fantastic, Shanice Parker was awesome as well. So a couple Aotearoa wrinkles there. Yeah. Old mate Halasima scored a try, so that was cool. What else are we going to say about Halasima? We've been talking about Halasima for years now. Like he was playing New South Wales Cup as a 17-year-old. So we've been talking about Halasima the whole time. No one should really be surprised about anything Halasima's doing right now. I think for a lot of people, this was their first moment with Halasima. But you remember that game against the Bulldogs, debut, played a bunch of different positions, had a line break that almost won the game. Like a similar moment, almost a game-winning try, running 40 meters, 50 meters. He did that last year. We've seen him do this type of stuff in the NRL for a long time. Not a long time, but we've seen it for a while. But my point is, I just don't know what else to say about Halasima, aside from the fact, in this game, he played on both sides of the field. So he started the game at left edge forward. He scored his try on the right side of the field. And this is one of my big Warriors things right now, is their versatility. Because this is what helps you ride the wave of a season, but also just the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows during a game. In this game against the Knights, Kurt Capewell was at right centre. He was battling some sort of niggle, so he came off. Adam Pompey moved from left centre to right centre. So in this game against the Knights, you had two players playing on both sides of the field. Leka Halasima left edge forward, then right edge forward. Adam Pompey left centre, then right centre. Tamairo Martin played two positions in this game as well. Fullback when Taine Tuapiki had an HIA, left centre to then move Pompey to the right side of the field and bring off Capewell. What did Tamairo Martin and Adam Pompey do against the Tigers? They played on both sides of the field. Tamairo Martin was playing right centre for Rocco Berry, second half. He's at left centre. Adam Pompey is on the right side of the field. Versatility and being able to play edge, middle, left, right is a very important strength that the Warriors have shown, and it was on display in this victory against the Knights. It was also on display in New South Wales Cup because the team sheets were slightly off. Ali Leatawa was listed as playing fullback, but he was playing in the halves. So the New South Wales Cup Warriors defeated the North Sydney Bears with a halves combination of Jet Cleary and Ali Leatawa. One is under 21s, the other is a centre, who has had moments of excellence as a half in New South Wales Cup. It also had Keilani Going playing in the middle, but Keilani Going was playing on the right edge, where he scored a pretty crazy try that was like Leka Halasima-esque. Maybe Leka Halasima was doing the Keilani Going thing. I don't know. I don't know which way it is. But Keilani Going was playing as an edge forward with Tom Ali rolling through the middle. So that versatility goes throughout the organization, and something that goes out that also goes out throughout the something else that goes throughout the whole organization is this system of producing young talent, developing young talent, and mentoring young talent to get the best out of them to the NRL. This is what I thought the most about after Halasima's try. And that started when I was watching the try over and over and over and over and over and over and then over and over and a wee bit more times was how fast Dimitri Vaimunga was. Like Dimitri Vaimunga was keeping up with Halasima. And then you also had Jacob Laban, and Jacob Laban, he's on the left, he's playing left edge. So Halasima's on the right edge. So what happened in that game? The Warriors finished that game with Jacob Laban left edge, Dimitri Vaimunga in the middle, Leka Halasima right edge. I mean, this is the point I'm making is right there. It's right there for you. So I'm just laid out for you right there. But Jacob Laban, you can kind of see. So he's running in his channel when Halasima's running in his channel. And then as Halasima approaches the try line and the finish line, you can see Laban, who is right there, number 15, you can see him start to turn the corner. So he's running straight as if he needs to hold his width. But then as everyone starts to celebrate, you can see Laban just like turn the corner and start sprinting towards Halasima. Those are the two things that I noticed watching that try 50 million times. the Warriors have had a top 4 New South Wales Cup team for 3 years in a row. They are first right now. They are 17-1 in New South Wales Cup. Before that, they were a top 4 team 2 years in a row in reserve grade in New South Wales Cup. Where did Halasima come from? He came from that New South Wales Cup team. Where did Faiumu come from? He came from the New South Wales Cup team. Where did Jacob Laban come from? That New South Wales Cup team. Tanah Smith. Where did he come from? That New South Wales Cup team that was top 4 2 years in a row. The beautiful thing about the Warriors right now is that those players have all moved into the NRL. Right? They've played most of this year in the NRL. And the New South Wales Cup team is doing better. Like, they're not, I use top 4 because they were second, they were third, they were fourth. They were top 4, just the same way the Warriors are a top 4 team in the NRL right now. 2025, the Warriors are first, 17-1. The next best team is 14-3. The Warriors, like, obviously, no shit, Sherlock, the Warriors have the most wins and the fewest losses in New South Wales Cup. So what happened in New South Wales Cup this week? Well, there was this dude, C.O. Kelly. You might have heard of him. Oh my God, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, he might go to 360. He's going to get $1 million. Who cares? The thing that we always love, the young talent that's coming through, whether it's cricket and we're worrying about Trent Bolt's departure, whether it's this isn't the best example, but how are the Wellington Phoenix going to replace Costa Barbarouses? What's going to happen? They're losing an older player. How are the Warriors going to replace Tohu Harris, Dylan Walker, Sean Johnson, all these guys? Have you seen the youngsters? Right, like, this is across all the sports. How are the Warriors going to deal with Roger Tuivasa-Sheck going to 360? There's another dude right there waiting for his chance. And even then, I don't feel like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, he's not going to have as much fun as he's having right now. So, like, all of those kind of headlines, you just brush them off because, cool, you can make a lot of money, but nothing you do in those competitions is going to be as fulfilling as what Richard Tuivasa-Sheck's doing right now, right? More on that in a jiffy. But C.O. Kelly, I think he's 19 years old. He just scored 3 tries in New South Wales Cup. Ali Leotawa was playing in the halves as a centre. And anytime he plays in the halves in New South Wales Cup, he's awesome. Jet Cleary, under 21, playing halves for the Warriors in New South Wales Cup. This was actually a really important game for Jet Cleary because he was the leading playmaker. There was no Luke Hanson. There was no Sam Healy. Sam Healy was 18th man for the Warriors in the NRL. So Jet Cleary was the main dude. Even then, he's behind Luke Hanson, and I still think Jack Thompson he's my guy. I think he's the most talented half in the Warriors system. Aside from Tanah Boyd. More on that in a jiffy. So Sam Healy wasn't playing New South Wales Cup. So who was playing New South Wales Cup hooker? That was Micaiah Tafua from Christchurch, who was under 21s, and he played 75 minutes at hooker for the New South Wales Cup team. In a win. Who are the 2 props in New South Wales Cup? Harry Durbin and Rodney Tuipulotu-Vea. They're both under 21s. Kalis Fatialofa, what does he do every week in New South Wales Cup? He plays 80 minutes. He's under 21s. The bench. We had Jason Salalilo from Christchurch. Under 21s. Who looks awesome in New South Wales Cup. Toby Crosby is 22 years old, but if you're looking for another forward, well, we got both starting props. Harry Durbin, Rodney Tuipulotu-Vea, Kalis Fatialofa. Idiota Mia Toiava didn't play this weekend. He's going to make his debut very soon for the Warriors in the NRL. And then you've got Toby Crosby, who is just as freaky as anyone else, except for Halasima, maybe. And we had Etuati Fukafuka playing his first game of the season in New South Wales Cup, moving up from under-21s. He did play a few years ago, but then he's been just settling down in Jersey Flegg as a small forward. He is like very similar to Aaron Clark. So I don't like, how many under-21s did we have this week in New South Wales Cup? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 under-21s in New South Wales Cup. 18th man was Patrick Moimoy, who had played for the under-21s an hour earlier. These are the next guys. All of them are fantastic. Luke Hansen didn't play this weekend in New South Wales Cup. Eddie Iramia Toiava didn't play. So there's more under-21s ready to go in that New South Wales Cup environment. But the biggest thing for me in this, okay, so C.O. Kelly scored 3 tries. Jet Cleary, he was the dominant playmaker. That's useful for him. Harry Durbin, under-21s, he played 41 minutes. Rodney Tuipolotuvea, 49 minutes. Fatialofa, full 80 minutes. Makaya Tafua, 75 minutes. Salalilo, 37 minutes. Toby Crosby, 41 minutes. Fukafuka played 22 minutes in his first game of the season, and that's the type of involvement you might expect from young players. Instead, the best New South Wales Cup team this year with a 17-1 record relies heavily on young players. So all of that is happening below the Leka Halasima headline. Just below the headline, to me, now this is the thing, you might have Leka Halasima try, and I'll get onto some other stuff soon, because I do think there is a lot more happening with the Warriors. But okay, Leka Halasima scored that try. Well, Dimitri Vaimunga's now played over 35 minutes in 5 consecutive games. And if you watch he did a little interview with Sean Johnson. And in that interview with Sean Johnson, he said, I want to be the guy that other players do not want to run at. So what did Dimitri Vaimunga do against the Knights? He bumped off Leo Thompson. He was the one instigating the scuffle at the end of the game. Dimitri Vaimunga is my favorite Warriors player. I'm saying that for certain. It's Dimitri Vaimunga. A little bit we've got to be a little bit different here. And I don't want to just say Halasima. That's easy. But Dimitri Vaimunga he's my favorite player. Tanah Smith, against the Knights, he played 31 minutes. That was his first game over 30 minutes this season. Jacob Laban, he played 32 minutes versus the Knights. He's played over 30 minutes in 4 of his last 5 games. Who was on the bench for that Knights game? Well, Leka Halasima started the game. And it was, just having a blank in the mind, Jacob Laban, Dimitri Vaimunga, Tanah Smith. They were the bench players. With Tamaru Martin, the utility man. So the Warriors won that game against the Knights with the youngest dude scoring the epic try, and their 3 bench forwards are all young players. 2 of which were on the field at the end of the game. So we can't diminish anything Halasima's doing, because that's impossible. But when you go through the layers of what the Warriors are up to, there are the young players in the NRL team are doing very, very well. the New South Wales Cup team is the best New South Wales Cup team this year, every week, half of that team are under 21s. And of course, they are back-to-back Harold Matthews Cup champions. So that's like the most important thing for me when I'm reflecting on that Halasima try. It's not a coincidence, right? Like, yes, it was a moment of brilliance for Halasima, but if you look at the talent the Warriors have in the system, how they are being developed, the teams they come through at the Warriors, because all the players who played against the Knights, they have come from a winning New South Wales Cup team. Those players leave that New South Wales Cup team, and the New South Wales Cup team is having their best season of the 3 years of the Two Andes era. All of that is crazy. So again, okay, the Warriors, they win at their best. And this is the thing about the Warriors this year. They win games when they're not playing their best. Sometimes I do wonder, like, okay, would Warriors fans want them to play perfect rugby league and lose? Because you do, like, we have to look around the comments section, get a tap in with the fans. Some of the fans seem to think, well, some of the fans, yeah, it just seems like they would rather a perfect performance. Personally, I would prefer that the Warriors play shit and win, because that's something the Warriors have never done before. Throughout our history, the Warriors are usually that team who find ways to lose. Now they are the team that find a way to win games they probably shouldn't win because they're not playing perfect footy. And in those cases where they find a way to win, it's usually happening late in the game. So what's another thing? What's another stereotype about the Warriors? Big forwards, they're tired. Or not a lot of fitness there, not a lot of discipline there. Well, you watch how fast those bodies are moving when Halasima, who's moving the fastest, scores that try. Every one of the Warriors players is moving faster than a Knights player. Faiumunga's keeping up with him. Harris Tavita is right there. Laban is sprinting at the end of the game. The Warriors are a fit NRL team. Right? At the end of the game, they're focused, they're concentrating, they're switched on, and that comes from your fitness. And then obviously you need the fitness to keep your legs moving. And like some of the younger players have the most energy at the end of the game. So like we're getting into racial stereotypes here. Many would look at Halasima and think, he didn't play 80 minutes against the Knights, but you know, he's a power player, he's an offloader, he's an impact player. Halasima, I think, to me, he's what David Fifita should be. Right? But it's Halasima, not David Fifita. Because I initially thought, like, okay, Halasima, he's like if David Fifita loved defense. And then I thought about it more, and I was like, maybe Leka Halasima is just what David Fifita should be, but he's not. Because he doesn't have that mana. He doesn't have the foundations of the Warriors' culture around him. Like, Dimitri Faiumunga is a leader. He gives me goosebumps when he's talking about being a leader, being everything he says. Laban, he's awesome. Tanah Smith, he's awesome. So you got that winning late. You got the fitness. In the news that I had the note about when they their wins this season, 12 wins. They have scored 15 tries after the 60th minute in their 12 wins. Their opposition have scored 8 tries. 15 tries scored, 8 tries conceded after the 60th minute. right? That's the long game. That's the fitness. That is everything that the Warriors were not for most of their existence. It's there right now. And it's throughout the system. But the other thing, like, I don't want to overlook, so there's young players, but we got to talk about the leaders, right? Like Fisher Harris, Tuivasa Sheck, Wade Egan. Like, those dudes are putting in a lot of hard mahi to set up like a Halasima explosion. Those dudes are driving the culture. They're leading the culture. And especially against the Knights, I think it's easy to overlook what's the first thing. Like, Knights were pretty solid. I think the Knights are one of the better bottom 8 teams. And you can be a better bottom 8 team just by your defensive effort. The Knights had a very good kick chase, so there wasn't much space. They were very connected defensively. They worked hard for each other. Like, shout out to the Knights. And it was a grind for the Warriors in that game. Ultimately, I thought Fisher Harris, Jackson Ford, and Aaron Clark were better than the Knights' middle forwards. And those are the foundations for victory. So you can never overlook all the effort that went through that middle forward rotation. Fisher Harris, Jackson Ford, Aaron Clark. Then you have Dimitri Faiumu and Stowers Smith involved as well through the middle. Maratini Okore, he's another versatile player, plays edge and middle. Just all the repeat efforts through, getting tangled up here, through 60 minutes, 70 minutes, right? That doesn't look cool, but those are the foundations from which the Warriors are winning these games. Part of that is Roger Tuivasa Sheck, and I think Roger Tuivasa, this is one of his best seasons, if not his best season. Now, again, it gets a bit weird here because Tuivasa Sheck, Dally M medal winner, but you got to ask yourself, if the Warriors are 2-0 without their Dally M talisman this season, what does that say about the Dally M? Right, if you're, let's put this in like American language. The Warriors are 2-0 without their MVP. Like, what does that tell you about the value of that player? More on that in a bit. But Tuivasa Sheck, what did he do against the Knights? 24 runs, 265 meters. You're better at math than me. That's more than 10 meters per run on 24 runs. Right, like, this is my favorite NRL stat, is how many meters per run are you getting? Because I don't care if you're doing 24 runs and you're getting 100 meters. That's weak. Like, sure, you show up, you take a run. You're not making many meters with that run. Tuivasa Sheck, over 10 meters per run on 24 runs. As a veteran. Like, this is his best tackling season by a significant margin. And he's up there for meters per game. He's almost doing as many meters per game as a winger as he did as a fullback during his Dally M. Excuse me. Got uncontrollable bips. He's almost got as many meters per run as a winger as he did as a fullback when he was in that Dally M situation. He's on track for the most tries of his career. Most tries as an NZ Warriors player. He's got 7 tries this year, which is tied with 2019, and he's on track to go more than 10 tries in 2017. He's averaging 193 meters per game. these are the type of things that get overlooked when you have a Halasima moment. And I think there is a lot of there's room for, obviously the Warriors went for it like perfect or close to perfect against the Knights, and there's plenty of room for improvement. And I think that improvement's going to come with the balance of the halves rotation and getting Shans Nickel-Klokstad back at fullback with Tanah Boyd in the halves. I love Tain Tuapiki, but the way Tanah Boyd plays halfback, to me, is better suited to the style of fullback that Shans Nickel-Klokstad is. Because Tanah Boyd, now, this is where we get into some goofy territory. So everyone's hating on Tanah Boyd. Tanah Boyd, who has a considerably higher goal-kicking conversion rate than Luke Metcalf. Tanah Boyd, 81.8% in the NRL. Luke Metcalf, 66.6%. It's a weird situation. Like, Tanah Boyd's goal-kicking kept the Warriors in the game. And then he missed the clutch moments. Luke Metcalf's goal-kicking hindered the Warriors, and then he would step up in the clutch moment. You know, which would you prefer? I don't know, as long as the team wins. But they're doing opposite things. Knights didn't get any conversions. 0-3. Tanah Boyd, he was 3-3. Now, one of them was the final try when the result was in the bag, but he kicked both conversions before that to keep the Warriors in the contest. And what else did Tanah Boyd do? Well, this year he's 15-0 in the NRL and New South Wales Cup. So I don't think you're terrible if you haven't lost a game this year. Like, you're doing all right. But every kick from Tanah Boyd was landing on the 10-metre line. Right? And this is the Warriors. This is the long game system. This is grit and grind rugby league for the Warriors. Tanah Boyd, every kick is going up into the sky. It's giving the chasers time to be right there. Now, if you're Andrew Voss and you're fascinated by your own personal preference of how you want rugby league played, you're tripping out the whole game, as he was against the Knights, because he was acting as if the Warriors didn't exist for most of that game.
Including for like 80% of Halasima's run as well. You could see that he was bursting towards the try line, and they were just talking about it like it was nothing was happening. And then, to his credit, Vossi did pipe up once they scored. He did. He went a little bit nuts at that point with the all like, "Don't you just love rugby league" type thing that he likes to do. But there was like I remember having like it felt like an out of body experience for about 3 seconds there, where it's like he's about to score one of the moments. He's a try, which is one of the moments of the season, and you're not acknowledging it. Like, what's going on here?
I mean, he thought Leo Thompson did a big shot in Waimonga, and he got bumped off. I'm coming around. Like, I don't know if I have a favorite Australian commentator. Like, I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, Vossi's he's gone down in my rankings over recent years. He's ludicrous. I don't even know if he watches Warriors games like in his spare time. That dude. And if you get Vossi with Blocker Roach,
yeah,
I want to punch myself listening. I was like, oh yeah, but then like, and he kept saying how like you got to like, sure, the Knights, they got Bradman Best at left centre. He's very good at rugby league. You're going to score some points down that edge. Kirk Capewell's playing busted. He's having a crack. Pompey moves to right centre. They shut him down. But of course, Warriors don't exist. So it's like the commentators, they're just like, what are the Knights doing? They got to get the ball to Bradman Best. Well, we got our defensive maestro, Adam Pompey, over there, brother. This is tactics. This is coaching. This is defense. And also Tanah Boyd can tackle, like he was operating as if Tanah Boyd couldn't tackle. And I've seen Tanah Boyd 2 games in a row make very solid one-on-one tackles with Faiumu brother, Whenua Pole, McEwen for the Knights, edge forwards. Tanah Boyd is getting into there, getting a shoulder in there.
Well, I think it was Api Coruscant or someone like that after the Tigers game last week. They asked him about whether they were targeting Tanah Boyd defensively, like his defense. And the question was sort of framed like was this a weak spot? We've been looking at, there's running at him a lot. Is this a weak spot you're trying to get to? And he basically said, like, it's not that it's a weak spot, it's that he's just a new player in the team. So we thought we would run at him more often. And then he specifically said, like, how Tanah Boyd did awesome at that job. So, I'll take the reference of the guy who played against him rather than the sort of prescribed notions that we seem to be getting in a few of these other cases.
Yeah, I don't want to go too hard into Tanah Boyd's as all good at defense, because two mediocre teams have scored tries down that edge in back-to-back weeks. But it's rugby. Like most people, they're better passing right to left, because I think there's more right-handers in the world of sport. So your passing movements are going to be better passing right to left. And like against the Knights, Kurt Cape was playing busted. So anyone can think Tanah Boyd isn't good at defense, and then they'll find out that he's going to tackle you. But after that tangent, that little diversion, back to the long game, where Tanah Boyd is kicking long, he's kicking high. And the Warriors, as the game went along, their long game recipe, they're winning the territory. They are dictating where the game is being played. That comes from good running and Tanah Boyd's kicking game. And you can also see it like, okay, so the Knights, they got Dane Gagai, he was playing busted, but you still got Greg Mazu, you got Dominic Young. Knights had 121 kick return meters, Warriors 189. So that's defensive line. So your kicks are higher, giving the defensive line more time to shut that down, and they're longer, so you're winning that territory battle. That's Tanah Boyd's kicking game. The thing that has a lot of room for improvement is the combination with Chanel Harris-Tavita. Because I think Chanel Harris-Tavita is just still figuring out like how to operate with Tanah Boyd. Because Tanah Boyd, he is a pure halfback, as we've talked about. So he's just doing more stuff than Luke Metcalf would do. Earlier in the season, we talked about the balance, the good balance between Chanel Harris-Tavita and Luke Metcalf. Like, they're doing the same amount of work. Now, Tanah Boyd is doing most of the work. And Chanel Harris-Tavita, he has to adjust to that, which isn't easy, because they played 15, 16, 17 games one way, and then you got to figure out how to play with Boyd. So what does that look like? Well, Chanel Harris-Tavita, most games, well, how many kick meters did he average this year? 202. Last 2 games, he's had 69 kick meters, 50 kick meters. So his kicking meters have gone down, and there's like 39 run meters, 49 run meters. That looks low in the last 2 weeks. But he's had other games. He's had 34 run meters. He's had 37 run meters. So that's not unique. And he's had 39 touches in both games with Tanah Boyd. Earlier in the season, he had a game, 33 touches, 35 touches, 35 touches, 37 touches. So he's doing less kicking. But he's having the same amount of touches. So you can't say Chanel Harris-Tavita is less involved. but it's complicated because sure, he's not having 100 run meters, but there isn't anything like super unique about the last two games as far as his run meters and his touches. Like kick meters, yes, there is a notable difference. But he's still getting his touches, he's still doing enough running, and the Warriors have won both games. That's the thing. So as they're figuring this out, they have 2 wins in the bag and plenty to learn from. So that's kind of, it's the basis of my defense for Tanah Boyd, because I think, like, yeah, sure, didn't kick a few penalties, didn't nail his field goals. It was probably the biggest game he's played this season. This, like, no New South Wales Cup game is going to be bigger than NRL, and it was a high pressure moment. But it goes back to like the Luke Metcalf storyline. And Luke Metcalf was good. I don't think Luke Metcalf was the reason the Warriors were a top 4 team. But he's a Dally M, rah, rah, rah. Well, the Warriors have just won 2 games without him. That's not anything negative against Luke Metcalf. It's not anything super positive for Tanah Boyd. It's all about the system. It's about the club. It's about the organization and all the pieces that go into the puzzle. Like what I was saying about Halasima, but then you got the other youngsters in the NRL, and then you got a New South Wales Cup team that keeps winning. This is an organization that is chiming in with so many different bits and pieces, and all those bits and pieces are contributing to a winning team. And a team that is able to win games in which they're playing a bit shitty.
And sport is pretty fickle sometimes, where like if Tanah Boyd just hits one of those drop goals, then the entire conversation is different. It'd be the exact same performance, just with a made drop goal instead of a missed drop goal. Exact same result, because the Warriors won that game anyway. Like, nothing would have changed, except that people would be celebrating Tanah Boyd instead of vilifying him. But really, like, the bulk of his performance would have been exactly the same, and the bulk of that performance would have been, either way, helping to set up the Warriors to win an NRL game. You know, like, it's a very fickle thing. And I guess, I mean, because in some ways, like, the second game is harder than the first game, because the first game you're all focused, and you might be you might even play within yourself a little bit, just like try to control as many things as you can. And second game is where it gets to that thing where it's like, most people who play NRL, almost everyone who plays NRL, has got there for a reason. Like, you're good enough to play NRL. What keeps you in first grade is whether you can do it consistently, like where you can play that well week after week after week. And the second game is when you start having something to compare it to. You're backing off that first one, and that's when it becomes a pressure situation already. It's already a pressure situation, because you're trying to prove that this whatever you did last week, that's your bare minimum for the rest of the season, for the rest of your career, whatever. And then you end up in a situation where you're also trying to kick field goals and game-winning penalties and whatever. I can see the difficulties in that, but I mean, the bottom line doesn't change, which is that everything he did up until those points, including some, he's not going to be like a Halasema defensively or whoever, but he's clearly done well enough at that in the last 2 weeks. Like, everything he'd done up until the point of missing those field goals was to put the Warriors in position to make this a winnable game. And they went on and won that game.
Like, Tanah Boyd definitely doesn't have the speed and the try-scoring ability of Luke Metcalf, but if you, like a very raw statistical comparison, his kick meters are in that Sean Johnson territory where it's a bit iffy to have one person doing so much. But I like his kicking game, as we talked about last week. He had 407 kick meters, 537 versus the Knights. This 2 games, he's averaging 472. Luke Metcalf averaged 378. Luke Metcalf had 9 forced dropouts in 15 games. Tanah Boyd has 3 in 2 games. So he's averaging more than Metcalf. He also has a try assist in both games. Luke Metcalf, he had 9 try assists in 15 games. So Boyd is averaging more try assists and forced dropouts and more kick meters than Luke Metcalf. He's a different halfback. It's not negative, it's not positive. To me, the way I think the Warriors play their best rugby league, the long game, the grind, grit and grind, I am leaning towards a preference of Boyd because his kicking game is so big and you can just keep turning the ball over down the opposition end, play the territory, and when you add in Shans Nickel-Klokstad, then you get back into, okay, he's getting 200 meters. Toi Vasashek's getting 200 meters, and Dylan Watane-Zelezniak's getting 100. And you can just repeat that cycle and grind your opposition down. So I think that is the best combination. If Taintua Tuapiki's at fullback, then you need a team like the Tigers who don't have as good a kick chase. Against the Knights, their kick chase was awesome, so they're getting big bodies in front of Tuaupiki and limiting how effective he could be. We'll keep it moving and get into some football. Do have lots of Aotearoa Rugby League matters on my mind, but you can read about them in our newsletter, thenichecache.substack.com. And of course, we've got the Kiwi NRL spotlights, usually covering the debutantes, 2 debutants from the latest round, Chris Viaila with the Sharks and Tavita Nofahu with the Dolphins. I will say both of them I expect to play for Tonga. So that means we got 12 Kiwi NRL debuts this year. And I think 4 of them are going to play for Tonga: Salesi Faketi, Temple Kalepo, Tavita Nofahu, and Chris Viaila. And let's just say I'll be covering all the Aotearoa Rugby League angles in our newsletter and on the website. So make sure you tapped in there because we got to keep it moving. And I get a bit crazy talking about the Warriors, so we'll keep it nice and light and fluffy and stay tuned because we're covering all the Aotearoa Rugby League matters throughout the Niche Cage, but we got to talk the big game. I don't know why it was a big game. Like, they got a massive crowd.
Are we talking about Wellington Olympic versus North Wellington here? Or?
That's the one. Shout out Wellington.
Birkenhead versus Western Springs, actually. That was the big one.
No, but that wasn't in Wellington.
No. But yeah, I had to pick a Wellington one.
So big ups Wellington Olympic and Northern Wellington, is that what you said?
Yeah, that was top versus bottom of the Central League. North Wellington scored first, and then Wellington Olympic did what they usually do and scored 5 unanswered and won 5-1. And I think that books them into the National League qualification. I think the first team officially guaranteed their qualification outside of, obviously, Auckland FC reserves and the Wellington Phoenix reserves, who played as much of that game on the weekend as the Wellington Phoenix first team did.
But I've never heard of North Wellington before. Like, I've heard of Waterside Karori, I've heard of Wellington Olympic, I've heard of them. Haven't heard of North Wellington before, so that was good.
They might be getting relegated, so you probably don't have to remember it.
But that Wellington, like, that was biggest than some of their A-League season crowds.
I think it would have been their second biggest crowd behind the Auckland-Wellington derby that they hosted last season.
Oh, I need to get some of those derbies back in my life. That's what I've been missing.
Yeah.
Crikey Jack, those were the days. And they're coming back around. That's the beautiful thing about life. The season's coming back around. So yes, the Wellington Phoenix did have a good off-season win against some team. And they were taking the piss. They just rotated their squad. Lots of young talent on show for the Wellington Phoenix. In our newsletter, you did highlight the rotation of the Wellington Phoenix team, first half and a second half, even gave a bit of formation chat, which I love to see as well. little formation tweak there. And I think there was also a coaching change.
Yeah, I don't know if that was official or not, but it did seem like Chris Greenacre was kind of taking charge of the second half, which would make sense because that was literally just his team. Like that was his under-20s team that was playing that game. I'm sure they all trained with the first team at some stage, certainly off and on, but um, even in the press conference afterwards, it was Greenacre and it was Italiano both fronted up. So I thought that was quite a nice touch. It was like a logical touch, but also quite a nice touch from Chiefy there because I don't know that every coach would have been as generous in that moment, you know?
Yeah, not usually, but there are some cases in other countries where the coaches are a bit insecure about their position, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to give an opportunity to an up and coming coach after you've just had an underwhelming season. That seems like a recipe for insecurities. But Chiefy Italiano, he's in Aotearoa. He knows how we do things in Aotearoa, so he was happy to give that opportunity to Chris Greenacre. A lot of interesting stuff in that second half team, but just looking at your first half team here and young players, like we know, like I'm familiar with Hughes, Sheridan, Kelly Heald, Roy Conchi, Brooke Smith, Sloane Rodriguez, but we also had Jaden Smith in the defensive line and Zwan Loki, who was he's a high pedigree kind of academy product who made a few headlines early last season, I think, and didn't actually get a game, but he was part of that midfield in the first half. Then the second half, that's where things get funky. That's where you get Mr. Flowerdew on, Gillian brother, so that was cool to see. Supik, been hearing a bit about him from yourself as well, and a bunch of dudes I don't know, Partridge, Monroe, Gardner, Lee, Watson, Cassidy, Candy. I think Candy's played before. Has he played before?
Candy has come off the bench. He got a debut for the Phoenix and the A-League. A short debut, but he has played some A-League. Luke Supik's played a fair bit. He actually has a full contract, but he's of the he's sort of on a par with the scholarship level guys. I think that's it. I think those are the only two. Like someone like I think Ryan Watson and Dylan. Oh, I'm not sure about Dylan Gardner, but I think he was in a squad for the Aussie Cup last year, but he didn't play. Whereas I think Watson did get on the pitch. And Gillian has played like 2 games off the bench. Weirdly, not last season, but the season before. He played a couple games off the bench for the Phoenix in the A-League as well. So there's bits and pieces. Yeah, Xuan Loke was the only one in the first half team that hasn't played, but Jaden Smith has only played a little bit off the bench as well. So Loke is like a very good fullback / wingback, can play on either side, has captained the under-20s as well, so has good leadership pedigree. He's actually originally, I think, from like Dunedin or might even be, I think it's Dunedin, but he moved up to join the academy. Jaden Smith is from Nelson. He's a big, tall, powerful centre back in the sort of Finn Sermon mold that they've got a couple of guys who you could say similar things about. Even Dylan Gardner, older, 19, 20-year-old Baldy at the back there, he's a big unit too. He's from Hamilton. He's played a fair bit of what do you call it, like New Zealand age grade stuff, and he's a very impressive player. At the start of the year, so after the end of the last National League, I did my sort of it was top 10 prospects in the Phoenix Academy, but I picked 5 men and 5 women. And the 5 men that I picked were Lewis Partridge was there right back in the second half. Dylan Gardner, centre back. Lachlan Candy played on the wing. He actually played on both wings. He played a bit of right wing, bit of left wing, can also play as an attacking midfielder through the middle. Anaru Cassidy, classy midfielder operator there. And Luke Flowerdew was also one of those 5 players that I had hyped up. He not only scored the winning goal against Wrexham, but 1 week earlier, he also got a double against Miramar Rangers in a 3-2 loss. So he's in good form. I think he's got 5 goals this season. So he's the second top scorer for the Phoenix Reserves this year. Scored a few in National League last year. He is one of those guys who, other than Ben Wayne, like they went through a few years where they they were producing a lot of good classy midfielders and good centre backs, but they weren't really developing players who could like score goals, who had that little extra something of just like that. I don't know what it is. Uh, just being able to find themselves in the right place at the right time, hunting down those opportunities. Flowerdew is one though who certainly fits that bill. He's a goal scorer, and he showed that with a right place, right time again. Keeper spills one, there you are to knock it in.
It scored goals against who did he score goals?
He double against Miramar Rangers
Miramar.
one week, and
That's
then
that.
against Wrexham the next
No,
week.
the Miramar, because that's a Wellington derby. So you'd much rather score goals in a Wellington derby than against a off-season touring game. Wait, so you're saying Jaden Smith, Dylan Gardner, are they as tall as Kelly Hield? Lucas Kelly Hield?
I don't know exactly. Probably not. I think Smith is a little bit taller than Gardner, but they're both like well over 6 foot. They're both big units.
Well, yeah, there's no way they
But I
could be
don't
as
think
tall,
anyone's as tall as the Kelly Hields.
because then you're Kyle Jamison playing soccer, and that's always interesting to see. Is there anything you like? Something I'm learning is like it's good to see Uluwayemi, Nagasawa, Ishige in that team. Good to see them still around with Wellington Phoenix, because you did highlight some, like Uluwayemi didn't necessarily command the starting goalkeeper position. Nagasawa was used interestingly, let's just say, and Ishige, it felt like he kind of plateaued in the second half of the season. So it's good to see them still being involved and playing leadership roles. But is there anything else like specific that you learned about Wellington Phoenix from these off-season games and to take us into the A-League season?
I mean the Oluwayemi stuff in particular is nice because that leadership aspect, I noticed that too, where it was like, because he was the only one from the first half team that stayed on for the second half team, played another like 20 odd minutes or something like that before they subbed him off and brought on Eamon McCarron, who's the main goalkeeper at the moment for the reserves. I like just seeing him out there as a steadying presence behind that defensive line and giving advice and patting people on the back and stuff like that. I thought that was a really nice touch. Like that, he looked very invested and all that. And to be fair to Joshua Oluwayemi, he was sketchy in the first. Well, he had a big mistake in the first derby, and then he was a bit sketchy with some great saves, but a few errors through the first half of the season. Kind of lost his place to LB Kelly Hield. Then LB Kelly Hield got injured, and in fairness to Oluwayemi, he was really good over the last month or two of the last season. So he's coming in with a bit of momentum. So I thought that was good from him. He was excellent too against Wrexham. He made a couple fantastic saves. Really good from him. Other than that, it's hard to learn anything from a. It's not even an off-season game. Yeah, it's not even a preseason game. It's an off-season game. So it's so far out of what you'd expect. I could say it was interesting to see the Phoenix maybe being a little bit more sort of sticking to their positions more than we got a lot of last season, including where they were selected to begin with. You weren't seeing Nagasawa playing randomly on the wing or anything like that, or Matt Sheridan did play centre back, but he just seems to be Mr. Utility. He'll play anywhere. But I mean, it's 3 weeks, maybe less than that into training. I don't really know that you could expect anything else. I don't think you're gonna see any kind of here's the secret weapon that Chiefy's been working on all off season. The plans he's been drawing up. We've saved them specifically for this Wrexham game. No, you're not going to see that, and you're not going to see it in the Aussie Cup either. You wait until the A-League starts before we see anything intricate. So I don't think there was anything to learn necessarily about how they played. But I think there was a lot to gain from it, because even though I would be a hypocrite if I sat here and said really important win. It was so good that they beat this touring Welsh team. I don't think the result mattered that much either way. But a lot of people seem to think that it does. A lot of people really excited and found certainly the occasion was really good, regardless of what happened. Like a big crowd there, um, enjoying a pretty solid Wellington Phoenix, an exciting Wellington Phoenix performance. Certainly in the second half, we started seeing the kids just running around like madmen. Probably helps that they're in the middle of their season, whereas everyone else is off season. Like the Central League is 2/3 of the way through, so they're kind of at peak fitness at the moment. Um, but I think there was a buzz around that game, and whether people might be overreacting to a preseason game, maybe. But it's like the what was the mindfulness quote? Like take your something about put your good where it's supposed to use, or where it is. I can't remember what it was, but like we'll take the good in whatever way they can have, because there was a lot of bad vibes around the Wellington Phoenix last season, and this is something very positive to build off of. So if they're all happy and smiling, then I'm happy and smiling.
They've also signed Carlo Amiento, who is a left side attacker. That was just announced as you're speaking. So he he's from Australia. He's been playing in the Serie C, but he did play in the A-League, I believe, for Adelaide United. 2 seasons with Adelaide, 1 season with Adelaide, a few games. Oh, he's also played Perth Glory and Brisbane Roar before going to Italy. So who's the other dude they signed? The Nigerian striker.
Yeah, Ifenwe Eze.
So they signed a few attacking players, so that's cool. I think they do need a bit more vibrancy up front. As we know, they've got some very good local midfielders, defenders, as we've talked about. So now they add Carlo Amiento. I've never heard of him, and as we talked about, that's usually a good sign. If you're, especially in the A-League, if you've never heard of a signing, that's great news. But I don't think that's how everyone... I don't think that's a perspective shared by many Phoenix fans. They want signings they know. They want signings they've heard about before, because they all seem a little bit crazy. But that's all right. So
insecure would be the word I would use. But yes, it's
shout out to Carlo.
Insecurity is a form of craziness, I guess.
Shout out to Carlo Amiento. We'll look forward to him playing for the Wellington Phoenix. And another bit of news, Tommy Smith with an eye. He's gone from Auckland FC. Big blow to the Blue Knights, the Blue Riders, and their team culture, because the one and only culture man, Tommy Smith, he's left, but I don't think that's a major issue. I think they can absorb that loss in the same way Warriors and everyone else has absorbed losses and departures, and of course the Wellington Phoenix. But I do want to ask you, like, it seems as though Tommy Smith has automatic World Cup selection. Because when you're thinking, okay, so how do we get, Finn Sim and Tyler Binden, Boxall, all these dudes into a World Cup squad? Simple answer, you don't select Tommy Smith. But I was thinking about it, and like the way we talk about Tommy Smith, it feels like he's an automatic selection who isn't actually playing much football. He's a vibes guy. So maybe if you're selecting your best team, you don't select Tommy Smith, but maybe you select him as an assistant coach or something because you want to reward him for his efforts. But maybe you also just be a little bit ruthless and say, we're selecting our best footballers for a World Cup. And then unfortunately, Tommy Smith isn't part of that. Chris Wood would probably disagree because he seems to want him in everything. Has that crossed your mind?
Like, at his wedding, he even had him there.
There you go. There you go. Has that crossed your mind, like Tommy Smith? Because to me, he seems like an automatic selection, but I don't know if he should be an automatic selection. And he's in a position where the All Whites have a lot of depth. And he's now departed Auckland FC to go to like I don't even know if he's going to keep playing football, but if he does, he will be playing in the lower leagues of England, maybe Sunday League.
Yeah, I'm quite curious to see where he does land. I mean, he's pals with the Wrexham coach, so maybe he can go do a All-Whites-esque job with them where he hardly plays but is selected every week. You know, it's crossed my mind many times because he does have an automatic selection and he will be going to the World Cup. It basically picks him every single time. There's no doubt about it that he'll be there. I think after the World Cup, we move past that. But at this point, like I expect he'll probably just retire from internationals after the World Cup, to be honest. He'd have nothing else to prove. He'd have bookended his international career with a World Cup in 2010 and a World Cup in 2026. There's nothing else to play on for after that. You're not going to still be around later on. Baisley is very loyal and he's sort of already decided what his squad is and he kind of just wants to keep picking them. So I am like, yeah. I think about it a lot because in terms of ability, he's a very good footballer, but I don't think he's one of the 23 best footballers. We have 4 centre-backs ahead of him in the queue. And even Bill Tuiloma is starting to get a few games now in MLS, so maybe he would come back in challenging for a 5th choice centre-back if that was a thing. George Stanger hasn't played for the All Whites, but he played under Darren Baisley at under-20s level, and he's just moved up to the Scottish Premiership with Kilmarnock. So, and looks like he might, he started their last couple games in their League Cup, so there's good signs that he's going to be a pretty significant player there and might be due a bit of a boost up himself. None of that's going to change before the World Cup, but after the World Cup, as I said, I think that's it for Tommy Smith's international career. So I think that's also part of why it does feel very sentimental. Like I wouldn't even call him a vibes guy. I don't think he's the main man in the party. I think he's more like a standards guy. He's the link between the coach and the players, and I think that's quite important. I also think you can get him there without him having to use up one of the playing spots. But there is talk about maybe they'll have 26-man rosters instead of 23-man rosters at the World Cup. If that's the case, you get to pick 3 extra players, problem solved. You can pick Tommy Smith and whoever's going to lose their spot for Tommy Smith, which I don't think would be a centre-back. I think that's more likely someone like maybe Logan Rogerson would be on the fringes in that case, in that scenario. But we'll see, because I'm quite curious to see where he ends up, because I don't think he retires from club football. I think he's got, if he wants to, I think he can play a few more years, but certainly I think he'll play one more year because he wants to go to the World Cup, or else he wouldn't be doing any of this. But he does have a very protected spot in these weight squads, which maybe isn't entirely deserved. But I think arguably, because I'm sort of like, I'm long since come to terms with that. This is just how Baisley's going to pick his squad, so there's no point arguing with it. I think the more dramatic one is now Matt Garbutt, who 3 weeks after he became a free agent when his previous contract expired, which itself is 6 months after he was told to look for a new club because, there's something's got to change here. They're just, and I said Raider decided they didn't want him, but he didn't fit the style that they were trying to play for. I think there's talk about like attitude problems and stuff, which is very overrated. And I think, frankly, coming through bad Google translation type things, I think people have misinterpreted what that was about. It's not a matter of attitude problems why he's lost his gig at Breda. It's just his coach wanted to be a little more specific with it. His coach wanted a very structured, stay in your position type team, and Matt Garbutt is a bit of a wild card, run out of his position, try to make things happen, look for overloads type players, and he just wasn't. He's not the kind of guy that coach wanted in that spot, which is why. But I mean, fact is, he was told to look for a new club 6 months ago, didn't find one. I don't know why. I don't know if he couldn't agree on something or didn't find anything or whatever, but he stayed at NSW Breda for the next 6 months, continued to be selected for All Whites games. It's the only time he's really been playing football is for All Whites games and maybe a few spare under-21s as an overage player for Breda. Got released by Breda 3 weeks ago. I'm thinking, well, maybe that's why he waited so long. As why he didn't leave then is because he had a gig which he liked, which they were going to sign him on a free. Wait till next season and then we'll pick you. Well, it's been 3 weeks and nothing's happened there. So if he continues to not play, I don't think even though he's a borderline first 11 player. I don't see how you can possibly justify continuing to select him for all white squads. Like, at least Tommy Smith was getting games for Auckland FC, even if it was popping up off the bench. He was still hanging around, staying active, staying fit, and he had a team. At Garbutt at the moment, I mean, he might sign with somewhere tomorrow, and then this podcast is out of date straight away. If that's the case, perfect. That's great. That's what we want. We want to see him playing somewhere competitive and staying match fit and scoring goals and setting up goals and doing all them things that he does. But right now, he's been like 7-8 months without playing proper club football, and that's the one where I think Baisley's loyalty is surely going to be challenged, because how do you keep selecting that guy ahead of players who are working their asses off at their own clubs trying to get into contention? I think that's where it becomes that's where the selections work into a little bit of a conundrum. And it might not even be an up and comer. It might be that Ryan Thomas says he's available again. He's gotten back to a level of fitness, and he walks into an all-white squad. He was awesome for Pick Swallow last season. Admittedly, only sort of like a couple of months where he was fully fit, but he was really good. And he, so far, no hiccups through preseason. That's important. We haven't had the obligatory Ryan Thomas is going to sit out for 2 weeks because he's got a little bit of a hamstring niggle or whatever. He's been playing their friendly games. He's been doing what he needs to do. So if he feels like he's fit enough to add international football back into his calendar, Matt Garbutt might be in a little bit of trouble there, supposing nothing happens with him.
Can you see that overlapping with Costa Barbarouses?
Well, that was one of the things I was worried about when he left the Phoenix. It's like, why are you doing this a year out from a World Cup where you had a guaranteed spot where we know you were going to score 7, 8, 9, 10 goals per season with the Phoenix as a guaranteed starter? He might still do the exact same thing. He might even be better at Western Sydney. Who knows? But I think he is someone who's a little bit more on the fringes, in part because if Max Mata does really well at Shrewsbury Town and Ben Waine is doing really well at Port Vale, and both of them have already scored preseason goals for those teams, then if Moses Dyer does amazing in Cambodia, no, probably not that one. But there's only really room for one out of Waine or Mata at the moment, unless you drop Costa Barbarouses, who I'm not sure at a World Cup is the guy you want being as your center forward if Chris Wood gets injured. I don't know if you necessarily go with Costa there. I don't know if you necessarily want him as the guy coming in off the bench to play on the wing instead or anything like that. The answer to the question is I could see that. I don't think it will. I think he'll do all right at Western Sydney and he'll earn his spot the old-fashioned way. But that is an outcome that who knows? It could happen.
Last question for the podcast. Who will be Auckland FC's backup striker now that Tommy Smith is gone?
Oh, that's a good question. Got to be Nando, right? You chuck Nando up there and big man. He scored a bunch of goals last season already, so he's probably already got the credentials to be that like emergency extra center forward. I've seen, which game was it? Was it the most recent All Whites game? I think Michael Boxall did that. They said they left him forward alongside, or Chris Wood might have been off the pitch by then. I can't remember, unless he didn't start. No, he didn't start and he came on, I think was what it was. I might be conflating some games here, but I've seen Michael Boxall do it recently. We saw Tommy Smith do it with Auckland FC. So there is that, like, it's a path that we've trod before. Chuck his big centre back up there, extra body, see what happens. Probably your most skilled option would be Tyler Bindon. Nando Pinick. Well, no, we're talking about. I'm conflating All Whites again. Yeah, I'm thinking about World Cup stuff.
But in all seriousness, who's like? Give me a name for the backup centre back. So you got Nando Pinick, you got Dan Hall. They're going to be his centre backs. Last season, Tommy Smith would step into the centre back role. Who are we looking at as a Tommy Smith replacement in the probably local contingent for the Blue Riders?
Yeah, well, that is actually a good question on that. Like that, and it's not just backup centre back because although he barely played last season because of injury, Scott Galloway's also been released. So there's an experienced fullback option who can play on either side. So that is like they need something to fill that gap. I wouldn't be surprised if they sign another centre back, but it's like you've got a set starting pair. Like, do you sign a centre back and say you need to acknowledge that you're coming in to be a backup and playing in case of injury or something like that's hard to recruit a guy like that. So it might be a case where they say, let's see what the reserve team has to offer. Maybe let's see what the National League might have to offer. There's certainly a few options of guys they might sign who would be grateful for that opportunity. Sticking with guys already under contract, I think Semi Nabenu is the best centre back at the in the reserves team at the moment. Adama Koulibaly's also played a fair bit of centre back. I'm still not 100% convinced that centre back is his long-term position, but he's someone who could do a bit of a job. He's not as big as those other guys, so maybe also doesn't quite suit the centre back mold that Steve Corrigan's had. But Semi Nabenu definitely has. Semi Nabenu is not just because he's Fijian either, but he is basically a clone of Dan Hall. Like they play the same way, hard tackling, very strong, tall, surprisingly classy on the ball as well, and just very, very. He's got the ideal model to be basing his game off of by the guy. He just look at the first team, see what he does. But he's probably the one who I think could make that step up next season in case of emergency.
Beauty. Good stuff. That's the end of our podcast. Big up yourself. Tap in with all things Niche Cache across all the platforms of the interweb, and make sure you're doing your best. Have a crack today, and big up, big up. Kia kaha, stay beautiful, church.